Hey guys, Ivan here, and in today's video we're gonna do something fun. We're gonna compare Mike Sommerfeld versus Wesley VISSERS at their best, which we'll hopefully see at the Arnold Classic 2025. Alright guys, so let's begin. This video is gonna be very interesting. It is a very interesting comparison because soon, in about 8 weeks, we get to watch another Arnold Classic, and Classic Physique category is very interesting because we have the former Arnold Classic, actually the reigning Arnold Classic champion, Wesley VISSERS, and the runner-up at the Mr. Olympia, the guy who actually pushed Chris Bumstead, Mike Sommerfeld. And these guys are gonna go against each other, and they're most likely gonna be the top two, but that's not necessarily going to be the case. Classic Physique is tricky like that because it really depends on who brings what. All these guys in the top are phenomenal bodybuilders, and they're very close. Basically, the top 10 guys at the Mr. Olympia can switch places in a day or two. It depends on how on they are on that day. But in all likeliness, if everybody is really on, this is most likely going to be your top two. These are the two favorites. But here's the thing. Again, Mike Sommerfeld, yeah, he placed second at the Mr. Olympia. He actually kind of pushed Chris Bumstead. Based on what Tyler Mannion said, he almost beat him pretty much. That means that Mike is currently the #1 Classic Physique bodybuilder in the world and also the favorite at this Arnold Classic. I wouldn't say the favorite for next year's Mr. Olympia because it all depends on what happens at the Arnold Classic. Maybe Mike ends up in 5th. In that case, he is no longer going to be the favorite for the Mr. Olympia, but at this point he is the favorite to win the Mr. Olympia next year and also, of course, right now, the Arnold Classic. Now, at the Mr. Olympia, Mike, was he really that much improved, that much better than all the years before when he was placing in the top 5, top 10, whatever? I mean, yeah, he was definitely at his absolute best, but I wouldn't say that he was, like, significantly, drastically improved. He was on. With conditioning, with fullness on that day, I don't think he grew a ton of muscle. I mean, sure, he did that as well. He improved the body parts, but really, it all came down to how on he was on that day, and on that day, he was 100% on. Prior to this year's Mr. Olympia, we all kind of expected Wesley VISSERS to actually push Chris Bumstead, but he ended up all the way down to 8th. Does this mean that the caliber of competitors in the Mr. Olympia is that much better, that much higher, and that's why Wesley plays so low, or does it mean something else? It means something else, guys. It's simple as Wesley wasn't on at the Mr. Olympia. He was on at the Arnold Classic. At the Mr. Olympia, however, he failed with his peak. Not that he was horribly off, but he wasn't as conditioned, as dry, as full, as round. His legs were down in size. He was simply 15%, 20% off, which was enough to lose to 7 other guys. That's how it works in Classic Physique. It's all about the details, the small percentages. It's not like in the Open. In the Open, the bigger guy can still beat a lot of guys simply because of his size. In Classic Physique, everybody pretty much has the maximum amount of size. It's all about how you peak. So, Wesley failed at the Mr. Olympia, but at the Arnold Classic last year, he managed to beat basically almost all of the guys who beat him at the Mr. Olympia. And that's something you gotta remember, guys. It's not that Wesley VISSERS is not good enough to place high at the Mr. Olympia or to push Chris Bumstead. He could have done basically the same thing that Mike did, in my opinion, if he was the way he was at the Arnold Classic, because here, he was like 110%, and with that kind of peak, Wesley is a force in Classic Physique for sure. He can basically challenge everybody, including Chris Bumstead, in my opinion. Now, we didn't get to see that, unfortunately, at the Mr. Olympia, but at the Arnold Classic, hopefully, we'll get to see this. Hopefully, Wesley will fix the mistake he made for the Mr. Olympia, and he'll bring back the packages he brought last year at the Arnold Classic, and hopefully, Mike Sommerfeld will do the same, and we'll get to see a really good showdown between these two guys. But before that actually happens, let's try to figure out what would happen, what will happen if this ends up being the case. So let's compare these two guys pose for pose. let's start with the front double bicep. I hope I got the ratio right. Wesley is the tallest guy in that top 10 of the Mr. Olympia, and Mike is a shorter guy, so Wesley definitely has a lot more size going for him, especially when he's when he's full, when he's not flat. He's a bigger man, he's a more massive bodybuilder, he has the height, he has the wow factor, the golden era type of a physique. I don't want to say the classic physique, because classic physique is whoever wins the Mr. Olympia. You know, if Mike wins it, that's classic physique. But I guess you can say he has the classic look. Not classic physique look, but just classic look. Or the way I like to call it, golden era look. So Wesley has that going for him, but he is lacking certain body parts. He's definitely not as perfect as, let's say, flawless, like Mike Sommerfeld. So, for example, Wesley's legs are definitely not his strongest body part. Actually, the Arnold Classic, when he was so full, his quads from the front actually looked pretty decent, and from the sides as well. But from the back, which you're gonna see later, hamstrings and the leg width from behind, that's what he's lacking. Mike, however, very complete, extremely complete. He has the legs, the arms, the shoulders, the small waist, the big lats, the chest, everything pretty much. But he's not exactly the prettiest classic physique guy ever. I'm not saying he doesn't have the aesthetics, he has them for days, for sure. He is very, very aesthetic, but his aesthetics are not to the wow level like Wesley's are. So overall, those are the main differences. Wesley has the height and the wow classic look, and Mike has just more muscle to every single body part, and he's more complete. But as far as this pose, right off the bat, I would have to say Wesley's upper body is definitely way more impressive. I mean, the size of his arms, the shape of the biceps, that's a huge thing here, really, especially in comparison to Mike. He has those crazy, massive and peaky biceps. Those arms are looking insane. And he has higher lats, but they are like very well separated. Mike's are, you know, kind of sinking into his torso, so you don't really see the separation as clearly. But he also has good lats. I think Mike has a smaller waist than Wesley, but Wesley has those crazy wide shoulders. So in comparison to his shoulders, Wesley's waist actually kind of even looks smaller. Wesley also has thicker chest, so with all that being said, I think Wesley's upper body is definitely more impressive here. Now, as far as the legs, it's clear as day. Mike definitely has bigger legs, dominant legs compared to his upper body as well, which is something I like to see personally. It's not exactly what we used to see in Golden Era, but today in Classic Physique, I like to see more dominant legs. It creates better aesthetics for me personally. And I think that's also what the judges are trying to see. So Mike has better balance in this pose, but because of Wesley's biceps and that crazy wow factor, man, I have to give this pose to Wesley. Even though it's very close because of the leg size difference, I still have to go with Wesley because of the wow factor, especially through the arms and chest and like the upper body. I give this one to Wesley, so it's 1-0 right now. Alright, now let's move on to the next pose. The next pose they're both gonna hit is the front lat spread. Unfortunately, for some reason, this is not a mandatory pose. I don't know why. I hope they'll include it one day. But I also don't know if Wesley should be hitting it, because it's not a very good pose for him. Mike definitely looks better in this one. But now let's move on to a mandatory pose, which is side chest. Whew, and this one is tricky. Now, Wesley, once again, has the height, but the main thing that I'm seeing right here is the leg thickness, again, especially from the side. Mike's legs from the side are looking insane, honestly, like very, very thick. He almost looks like a bodybuilder, and his glutes have a really good separation. It goes, the tie-in, the glute hamstring tie-in goes very, very low. The hamstrings are very dense, they're hanging low. The height of the quad is better. Lower body, Mike really kills Wesley in this one much more than he does in the front double. In the upper body, of course, it's a little bit of a different story. What I like about Wesley here is that he has a really good chest-shoulder separation. Mike doesn't have that. His shoulders don't have any separation basically, and like there is no line between the shoulders and the chest. It looks like a single body part, and I don't like that at all. It's Mike's weakest point, if you ask me. Derek Lansford has a similar thing going on for him. Now in this pose, I would actually say that Mike's chest looks thicker, but I think it's mainly the posing thing. You know, he opened up a little bit more, he stretched those pecs a little bit more. Wesley is kind of hunched forward a little bit too much, and, you know, his chest is not really showing its width, and he has a lot of mass in the chest and the width, and he's just not showing it in this pose. Size in the arms, very comparable. So upper body here, it's close, it's comparable. Maybe I would say Wesley's a little bit better in the upper body, but then because of the legs, the huge size difference, and also like the lower body to upper body balance, yeah, I give this pose to Mike for sure. So it's 1-1 right now. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, now let's check out the next pose, which is gonna be the back double bicep, and this one is also very interesting. So even though Mike has really good hamstrings from the side, from the back, that's not a good point for him. That's his second biggest weakness after the shoulder-chest separation. So even though you probably expected a huge difference in size of the legs, from behind, it's not really what we're seeing. However, that's also Wesley's #1 weakest point, his hamstrings and his like glutes and basically the size of the legs from behind. So even though Mike is not that great in this department, he is still much better than Wesley Vissers here. You know, the glute separation, the glute size, the leg size from behind, he's definitely better here. Now, as far as the back itself, again, Mike has really low inserted lats, but in this pose, it works, man. It really works. And like, there are no gaps in his back. Like the lower back, it's all tight, it's all full, it's all filled with muscle. Wesley kind of has a gap in his lower back, like there isn't this much muscle and there is a little bit of, I don't know if it is just water or fat, but like there is no crispness in the lower back as much as there is in Mike's back. Now what Wesley has here is, again, the wow factor, the width in the shoulders, the height, and the crazy shoulder separation, which Mike doesn't have, but is that enough? No, I definitely wouldn't say so. I would say Mike has a better back, better lower body from behind. You can say that maybe Wesley has better shoulders and arms, but that's not enough to win this pose. I give this pose to Mike. It's 2-1 right now. Alright, the next pose is gonna be the favorite classic pose. In their posing routines, none of these guys hit the abs and thighs, so we're gonna have to do that one later. I'm gonna try to find a really good photo of those poses of these two guys, but as far as the classic pose, I have no idea how the judges are able to judge these poses because everybody hits something different. I think this should be standardized the way most muscular is. Maybe a couple of variations of one pose, or maybe just say it's gonna have to be from the front. It's impossible to compare a back pose to a front pose, but what we can look at is maybe like who is more classic, who has more aesthetic of a physique, and in that case, I would have to go with Wesley, even though Mike is great, and like, if they did the same pose, maybe Mike would beat Wesley, so I think it's very important for Wesley to not do whatever Mike is doing, and try to win this pose based on his golden era type of a look. You know, because it is a classic pose, so just try to look as classic as possible, and Wesley has those classic lines, especially in certain poses. I chose this one here, so yeah, let's give this one to Wesley, but again, I don't know how they're judging this pose. So that makes it 2-2, it's a tie right now, and a tiebreaker is gonna be abs and thighs. Let's take a look at it. When it comes to this pose, I think it is crystal clear that Wesley cannot win this one against Mike, even with his vacuum. Mike is simply better in this one. His waist is smaller, his abs are more developed, his quads are better. So this makes it 3-2 for Mike. And based on this comparison, pose for pose, seemingly Mike wins. Now, maybe things are going to be different. Maybe Mike is not going to be on and Wesley will be on. Maybe the transitions and like the presence of Wesley is going to create a wow effect and he's going to win over the judges, and maybe he won't win every pose, but overall he's going to be better. That can happen. But based on this comparison, pose for pose, Mike seems to be definitely more complete in all the poses. But we'll see who's going to bring what at the Arnold Classic. It's definitely going to be a very, very interesting Arnold Classic for both open and classic physique. Whatever you guys think about this, tell me down below in the comment section. If you guys want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. I just got to 50k subscribers. The next goal is, of course, 100k. We just need to double this up. So guys, if you're watching these videos and you're not subscribed, just please do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. See you soon. All the best and bye-bye.